Feelings. The most important thing to keep us going in life. Life is defined by what we feel. We love, we hate. We cry from sadness and smile from joy. Feelings take over our body, and sometimes that can be overwhelming. And sometimes feelings can be so overwhelming, we just feel empty. So for this project, I wanted to create a piece based off feelings and, more importantly, the feelings of others. So when thinking about ideas, I decided to reach out to people on social media, and there are many reasons why I chose social media. The first reason being because of the pandemic. I felt that it was the safest way and a lot more people would participate in this. And the second reason being because social media, I think, and a lot of others, is where it's the easiest to be real and vulnerable, and people find it also easier to speak the truth on there and just be like in a screen instead of being like in person or something like that. I feel like through a screen it's a lot easier to be real about your feelings because there's no, like texting for example, it's easier to be like fight through text because you don't have to do it face to face, and I felt that same way about talking about your feelings. So that's why I chose to do it through social media with this specific project. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I feel like I could explore also this project a lot more with leaving boxes around the city with the questions like, how are you really, or anything regarding something vulnerable. And I could get a lot more views from complete strangers rather than people that I already know or I'm like acquaintances of. As well, I could definitely do more live art interventions because I did that for the ball project and I had the best time just sitting there with the sign, how are you really, and people looking and walking by, and I thought it was really fun. So I think that's something in the future I definitely want to do again. But for now, I'm just going to keep it onto social media for this specific project and the piece that I'm making. But in the future, I feel like I could take this project a lot bigger, exploring vulnerability, maybe not with the question, how are you really, but with different questions or just completely different ideas. I decided to take the idea of the question again, how are you really, and include that in my personal project. I sent out the questions, how are you really, on my Snapchat story, and was able to receive only anonymous answers back. When going through the answers, I realized how the majority of people are not doing well. After taking a look through, I decided to ask one more question, and that one was, is it hard for you to open up? Yes or no, and why? Almost every answer was yes, and then the explanation. One boy messaged me privately and told me his whole story, and that was where my idea came from for the actual outcome of this piece. We discussed how it felt to not find it easy to open up and how it's like you try to reach out, but your brain pulls you back in. There's this vulnerability to it, and being vulnerable is one of the hardest things that you can do. And this is what this project is going to represent. It's almost as if sometimes we tell ourselves that we cannot feel a certain way. I then decided to create a piece based off of my own emotions and how I felt to post to social media to show that I'm being vulnerable back. After experimenting, a lot of ideas ran through my head, and I decided to go back to the conversation that I had had with that boy about how you try to reach out and you're being vulnerable, but something always pulls you back in, forcing you to put up like this facade. Sort of like you're sinking away in your own thoughts, but people don't hear you like gasping for air. It's like you can be so close to someone yet so far and know nothing about what's going on in their mind. So I wanted to take that idea and make a final closing piece to the topic, how are you really? So this question. This piece is supposed to reflect all who feel this way. It speaks to the lost who feel like they can't express their feelings due to their own personal reasons. And this piece is composed of all of the people who sent in their anonymous messages. This is my piece, a hand reaching up for air but being pulled back down by a red ribbon which represents the fear, one of the main reasons for the people not opening up. This piece is inspired by everyone's anonymous answers as well as my story. I'm reaching the parts of us that feel this way, and to let them know that this feeling we have, we aren't alone. I feel this way as well as many others. It's to show the vulnerable people that I see you and I hear you, and now others will too. I wanted to say one last remark, and that is that at the start of this project, I wasn't really sure where I was headed with this, but having to be able to take a step back and re-see this whole concept and idea, I finally achieved what I really wanted to from the start, and I'm very glad I've got this chance to show honestly what I wanted to get across.